The Miami Heat right now are 11 games into their regular season, and things could not be any more roller coaster like than what this Heat season has been. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and possibly the turnaround that the Miami Heat are going to be having in their horizon. But before we do that, let's make sure that we're subscribing to the Heat Digest YouTube channel as we continue to grow. You guys continue to show that support. We truly, truly appreciate it, and we will try to continue to pump out this content for you guys surrounding anything and everything involving the Miami Heat. Mentioned the roller coaster that this team has been on. We're going to talk about first the good of the roller coaster, that downhill that we're truly love, the adrenaline rush, and the adrenaline rush has come from Mr. Tyler Herro. Tyler Herro averaging 24.5 points a game, 5 rebounds, and 5.3 assists to go along with just over 0.5 steals at 0.6. 2 turnovers a game, which seems pretty high, but a 5-to-2 ratio from assists to turnovers is not that bad, honestly, especially for Tyler Herro, who his thing has been trying to be efficient. 2 fouls a game, again, not getting a lot of foul calls on the defensive side of the ball, moving his feet, not being a liability or at least being better than what he has been in the past, and shooting 49% from the field and 45% from 3. Tyler Herro has truly been the brightest bright spot of this Miami Heat season. He's probably been the most consistent player, I would say. He has been the biggest contributor to wins. He's also been the biggest reason for some losses because, again, the Miami Heat are kind of relying on him a little bit more, and we like to see that from this Heat team as Tyler hopefully takes that leap from a very, very solid, possibly fringe all-star to a solidified all-star, maybe even flirting with a star type of leap, especially at the end of the season once postseason time does come. And the numbers back up what I'm talking about. You look at Tyler Herro's past season. This is his highest points per game, a career high 24.5. That is 4 points higher than his previous, which was 20.8 just last season. And Coach Spo's talked about it. I've talked about it. Houston's talked about it. The efficiency has been the biggest thing for Tyler Herro. I mentioned 45.7 from 3. That is a significant high for him. The previous career high for him, 39.9 back in the 21-22 season. And we talk about the field goal percentage. We're talking about 49.7. That is, again, a significant high from his previous, which was, again, in that 21-22 season where he was 44.7. I believe that was also the season he won 6th man of the year, if not the following year. So this has definitely been Tyler Herro's best year as a starter. Like I mentioned, he did win 6th man of the year a few years back. So you could argue that was a better season at the end. But I do think this is a situation where Tyler Herro might even get an all-star nod. Probably not one with the starters, but as a reserve, maybe the coaches see what he's doing. If the Heat can win enough games, if the East is going to be as kind of lackluster as it's been so far, I think Tyler Herro has a really, really good chance at being an all-star this season, which would be a huge, huge improvement for him and this Miami Heat team. We also look at the last 5 games he's played this season. Tyler's gone from 20 points, 40 points, 26, 24, and 28. Very, very good shooting from him. Then look at the efficiency. Again, 37, 51, 60, 47, 60. Those are the type of numbers that, do I think are this sustainable? No. But when he does come back down to earth, it seems like now his earth is that 40 to 37% range, which is very, very good, especially for a off the bounce type of score that he can be at times, that he needs to be at times. Right now, the Miami Heat offensively, they struggle with not having a real go-to guy. Jimmy just has had a down year right now. We know he can do in the playoffs, but right now in the regular season, he has not been that. And I think Tyler Herro has kind of put himself in that position to be the maybe not the face of the franchise, but you definitely look at maybe a 1B type of situation with Bam, possibly even a 1A if things continue to trek this right direction. So I think, yes, the biggest good, the only real good I would be comfortable saying right now for this Miami Heat team has been Tyler Herro and what he has done. Now, if we look at the bad from this Miami Heat team, pretty much, if I'm being honest, it can be everything else almost. I mean, we look across the board. There's been some other good. The 3-point percentage is 4th in the association at 38.5. But then you look at situations where the opponent's 3-point percentage is 25th, meaning that it is the 25th worst. 25th depends how you look at it, obviously, but basically the opponents are shooting 36.8% from the three-point line. That's not good defensively. We have to guard better against the three-pointer. You also have a situation where The scoring 18th, not bad. The defense, very good, only allowing 111 points. But if you're also scoring only 111 points, that means you're playing a lot of close games, and which is what Miami Heat have been doing, especially lately. We've got to talk about overtime game, talk about how many late game situations the Miami Heat were just in last week. Obviously, the Nikola Jovic layup, the Domantas Sabonis putback, situations where the team has to kind of gut out wins, which is good. Obviously, you want that experience, especially for the young guys, especially for the guys who may be called upon when the postseason time comes and you got to win some tough road games. Still want to be able to have some type of cushion between these two stats, because if not, you're talking about the Miami Heat having to really, again, gut out some wins that you can rely a lot on that, obviously, again, towards experience, but you're not going to win a lot of those. And in the end, I don't know if the team, specifically this team, has the talent to win those consistently. You can get an Eric Spoelstra timeout where it works. You can also get an Eric Spoelstra mistake where it doesn't. And if you're putting that kind of situation on the coaching and what the draw, what the execution is going to be, you're going to lose a lot more games, because it's situations where last 2 minutes or so, maybe even last 5 minutes of basketball games, it's about the players and who's going to go out and make a play. We're also going to talk about the turnaround. Now, the turnaround for the Miami Heat is very, very interesting. And when I say interesting, what I mean is this is part of the bad. You're looking at the record. You lose to Orlando. You beat Charlotte and Detroit, but then you lose to New York. You beat Washington, and you go on a 3-game skid. When I thought they were going to go 3-0, end up going 0-3. And then you gave a great win against Minnesota, but then you lose a heartbreaker to Detroit, and then you beat Indiana. It is the definition of up and down. It's the definition of up and down, but if we look at just the back end of these past 11 games, the win against Minnesota, the loss against Detroit, and then the win against Indiana. Great win by Minnesota. I think that showed that the Miami Heat can, again, win these type of games when they're locked in, when they come to play. The loss of Detroit, obviously it's on Coach Bo. We all know that. It is what it is. He's still arguably the best coach in the association. He makes mistakes. He's human. We're not going to necessarily come down on him or anything like that. But you definitely understand that one slipped out of your hands. You gave that one to Detroit, but the response is very, very impressive. To come back against Indiana, I think probably have their best game since Washington, which is a ways away now, almost over 2 weeks, I think. I think that's a very, very good sign for the Miami Heat. So I think that the reason I talk about turnaround with this is because the next slate of games, Indiana again, then you have Philly, Dallas, Milwaukee, Charlotte. Now you look at this run, you might think, Miami might struggle. But if we really look at this specific version of each one of these teams, Indiana, we just beat them. I don't care if it's on the road. I think Miami can easily win that one again and really kind of build some momentum. Philly, injury riddled as always. Tyrese Maxey's out. Joel Embiid is out. Paul George is out, or at least not 100%. We'll say that. Obviously, they haven't necessarily been ruled out for that game, but they're not 100% right now. Yes, you're looking at Jerry McCain, who's having a very good kind of run here, who's kind of catapulted himself to Rookie of the Year talks. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. I still like the Miami Heat. If your best player is Jared McCain, I don't necessarily think you can beat a Jimmy Bam, Tyler Hero-led team. So I think Miami can win that one. Dallas is the only one out of these next 5 games where I'm a little concerned about. Obviously, you have Luka. Obviously, you have Clay and Kyrie. With that being said, Dallas hasn't really had a good season so far either. Now, granted, they are out west, and the West is about as loaded as it's ever been. But the statement still stands. Dallas is not one of the best teams in the West right now. They're kind of finding their footing. They're still getting used to running with Clay. They're still getting used to now being kind of the hunted in a way, as being obviously NBA finalists last year. So there's a chance Miami can win that one. I'm not saying I would necessarily be confident in that one out of these 5, but there is a world where that happens. Milwaukee, we know that situation right now. Could you imagine Giannis comes down to Miami? Miami handles Milwaukee a very, not even dominant win, just a win that could really kind of rev up these sweepstake talks that have been going on right now. We talk about Giannis coming to Miami, Giannis maybe being on the move. I think Milwaukee, yes, Giannis has been on absolutely monstrous run right now, but we've seen that monstrous run does not necessarily lead to wins. We saw him put up almost 50 and lose to the Celtics. Now, granted, the Celtics are not the Heat, but still, my point stands. Just because Giannis puts up historic numbers does not necessarily mean the Bucks win like they used to. So again, that Milwaukee game is very, very up in the air for Miami. And Charlotte, Miami can handle Charlotte. Obviously, you have to respect LaMelo Ball and what he can do, but it's still a young team that's trying to rebuild and trying to find what they have in their core. in the end, 5 games, really there's only one game where I think Miami's not favored in, to be honest with you. The other four, Indiana, I think your favorites. Philly, I think your favorites. Are, again, barring injury stuff for the Philadelphia 76ers. Milwaukee, I think it's even. Maybe you're not favored by a lot, but I think Miami gets the nod because they seem to be more in control than Milwaukee does. And Charlotte, I give Miami the nod. You could easily go 4-1, 3-2 in that slate, and now you're looking at a situation where from 5-6, you go to now 8-8. You're at 500, and then you get into this next slate of games, and we kind of slowly build our way up through the Thanksgiving break into Christmas, which is again where the regular season really starts to kick up. You see a lot more marquee games. You see a lot more teams kind of hunker down and realize, okay, 20 games or so in, we know what we are, we understand what we are. Let's finally figure out what we really need to do to try and win and string together games. In the end, Miami has not had the best start. Obviously, they've had some great highs, they've had some great lows. I would consider this 11 games, the start of the season, a failure. Yeah, I would consider it a failure because, again, if we look back at the schedule, I think you can't lose to Orlando. I understand Paolo and the start that they had, but you can't lose to Orlando. The New York one, I kind of understand. You can't lose Sacramento. And Denver, Philly, Denver, Phoenix. The Phoenix one, it hurts because of the way it ended. So maybe instead of those losses, I think you should have taken the Sacramento one. You should have taken the Orlando one. That takes away 2 losses right there. The Suns one, it can still be up in the air because just because you get the shot off at the end doesn't necessarily mean it goes in. So I can consider that still being a loss. Denver, I can understand being a loss. Great win by Minnesota. And then Detroit should have been a win. So you take away the Detroit, the Kings, and the Orlando loss. Now we're going from 5-6 to 8-3. I think that would have been more realistic for the Miami Heat, to be honest with you. 8-3 would have been up there with the Celtics and the Cavs and those teams in the East. I don't think the Heat are there just yet. So maybe 5-6 is more realistic to what we are right now. Team trying to figure it out. Like I've mentioned before, this is a year where answers need to be given as to where the direction is for this team. Are we going young? Are we going to for the win now? Trying to push out all we can from the Jimmy Butler era. What is the move that needs to happen? Because there needs to be a move for this Miami Heat team. In the end, though, these next 5 games, I'm looking at a 4-1, 3-2 run. And if that's the case, Miami's back to 500, possibly over 500. And now we get the ball rolling, and we will see. Comment down below what you think the next 5 games will be for the Miami Heat. And with that being said, we will see you on the next episode of Heat Digest.